Hey, what's up, guys? So I decided to make a in-depth PvP healing guide. I get a lot of questions about, what abilities I run, my positioning, what gear do I need, blah blah blah. So I decided to just make a whole video going over the basics of healing in PvP, mainly wars, and what you need to do to be successful to do that. So I think first we'll start and we'll go over gear and what essential perks you need, what build you should be running, all that good stuff. Um, here's my gear, 596 gear score, blah blah blah. Helmet, um, got revitalizing beacon and fortifying sacred ground on my chest piece. That is, well, as far as healing goes, that's pretty much the only two perks you need. The mini protection or perk does not work at all. Um, Lights Embrace, accelerating Lights Embrace is cool, it's convenient, but I wouldn't say that it's necessary. So if you plan on doing a bunch of rolls, I would definitely go for Fortifying Sacred Ground first. That would definitely be the most important, and then Revitalizing Beacon after that. Revitalizing Beacon can help you stay alive longer sometimes, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a must have. Aside from that, I'm currently in light, as you can see. I was a medium healer for a long time, tried heavy, not really my thing. Medium is also good, but unfortunately, the meta on the server right now, that I'm on at least, is light with a rapier. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But essentially, we're in light because you get the 30%, as you can see right there, the 30% healing boost. I think it's worth the extra 15% you get over medium if you can stay alive while doing it. That would be the biggest thing. For my stats, I'm currently running 391 focus, 64 con, and then I eat this slow roasted bear flank with root vegetables food to give me 24 more focus and 16 more con. So that would put me at 415 con, or 415 focus and 80 con. Now, for a lot of people, you might want to be hitting this 100 con perk just for the flat 10k health if you have Helen Hardy and the health perk on your amulet. Um, you could even go up to the 150. It's also not a bad choice, but keep in mind the more focus you have, the more healing you do put out. So that is definitely one thing to consider. If you feel like you can live with less con, I would definitely take as least con as possible. I have seen some people be successful with this 200 con perk and the 20% extra armor, but for me, I don't really feel like that is necessary. And if you learn how to play around people and avoid damage, then you don't really need the extra con. We'll just jump back to gear real quick. I am currently running Malachites as well, and a few of these Silk Road pieces that give me more elemental. Right now, I feel like I can get away from melee fine. I don't die to melee as much as I take tick damage and get CC locked by mages. There's not a worse feeling than getting screamed at by a void gauntlet or getting stuck in an ice wall and then getting ice spiked for 75% of your health. So I recently made the switch over to Malachites. I was previously running diamonds, onyxes before that, and moonstones before that, but I feel like post melee nerf and with the way the tracking on a lot of the melee works now, you can get away from melee a lot easier and you don't necessarily take as much damage from them. For jewelry, amulet, personal preference. I have the 590 Oracle's amulet right now. It's a name dropped from Genesis, if I'm remembering correctly. The big thing you want on your amulet is this health perk. The one right at the bottom right there that just increases your maximum health pool. Also, if you could get Divine, that would also be ideal. If you get a Health Divine amulet, And then if you're looking for 600 gear, I would go Health Divine. Actually, I'm not sure on the third perk. That would be up to you. The perk that gives or makes Fortify last longer is not a bad choice. But that third perk is kind of personal preference. For Ring, Sacred is a must-have on your ring. That just boosts your healing by a flat amount. So definitely try to get a ring with Sacred if you don't have one already. For the second perk, my go-to is Hardy. Gives you more stamina, which is very clutch and light because you now get 2 dodges with extra stamina, or 3 dodges if you need it. For Earring, you're definitely going to want Refreshing Toast. That decreases your cooldown. Other perk, up to you. Mana Toast is okay. Not a huge fan. I personally like the one that gives you health when you drink a mana pot. And we'll talk about why that is later. But unfortunately, I do not have that currently. Life Staff, just get something with Blessed. Right now I'm using the Divine Devotion. Not great. Siphoning Blow is kind of useless in my opinion because it has a 28-second cooldown. And 2.8% mana is really not that great considering you can just hit a mana pot for 100 mana. But it's the only 600 life staff I have with Bless, so I was actually using this 590 Will of the Ancients over it for quite a while because this refreshing move just gives you a ton of extra, well, not a ton of extra CDR, but enough extra CDR that the argument could be made to use it over it. But I've recently been taking the Divine Devotion just for the raw healing power over the Will of the Ancients. Make sure you have a diamond in your life staff because that is the only gem that increases healing. Now, for secondary. As I stated earlier, Rapier in Light is the current meta. And the reason is the Rapier allows you just to create so much distance from from melee. And even from mages, you can riposte and get away, riposte and then fletch away and get it out rather easily. You can fletch and evade out of gravity wells. So they're kind of a non-factor for you now. But yeah, I would definitely consider the Rapier if you haven't given it a shot yet. It gives you a lot of survivability, and it's one of the reasons that I can run 64 or 80 con with food and be able to live just fine. The other two secondaries that I would consider is firstly a Void Gauntlet. If you can use a Void Gauntlet and provide that utility for your team while staying alive, that is a valid secondary. Now, the problem I found when using Void Gauntlet is if you do get hit with a gravity well in your back and you can't iframe it, or if you get hard CC'd, you have no type of escape whatsoever. So, well, obviously, if you're alive, you're healing. The longer you stay alive, the more healing you can put out. If you're dead, you unfortunately cannot heal anyone. So that is the reason I switched off the Void Gauntlet. It is nice for nuking other healers and just providing utility for your team. But I have found that the survivability that the Rapier gives you is just better right now. Now for the hammer, I was a medium hammer healer for a long time. I ran 150 con with the hammer in my medium gear, which I still keep on me when I go to wars in case I feel like I'm just getting hard focus. I can switch to my hammer and just never die. But the problem is I feel like I have to be in medium to run a hammer. I feel like if I'm in light and pull out the hammer, I'm just going to die before I can switch back to the life staff and get more healing off. So hammer can still be a viable option. Make sure that if you are using hammer, you're going to want to be using repulsing clear out, or you're going to be wanting using the clear out perk just to pill for yourself. and then you're going to want repulse and clear out on top of that just to send people flying. Aside from that, hammer perk, I would recommend Sundering Shockwave just to provide that extra rend for your team. Leeching Path is okay if you're also running Leeching Path or Path of Destiny. Not a not necessity, but I say if you are running Hammer, you definitely need Repulse and Clear Out and Sundering Shockwave. For Rapier, all you really need is Sundering Riposte. I also have Omnidirectional Evade on these gauntlets. Not necessary in any way because I am never mouse wanting with the Rapier. I'm only using it to escape. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. I'm in light with a Rapier. Make sure you have Fortifying Sacred Ground on your gear. I would try to run as much focus as possible just so you can heal as much as possible. But, you know, if you find yourself taking a lot of damage and you might need to run a little extra con. But yeah, oh, I guess I should show my credentials just so you can see I at least know a little bit of what I'm talking about. 32 war wins. Not the most, but you know, I've been in quite a few. Decent amount of experience healing in all 32 of these wars. PR 105. Not healing in all of those, but healing in most of them. So yeah, I think now we'll switch over and go over what build you should be running, or what build I would recommend you run with your life staff. Alright, so for life staff build, I've seen a lot of variation and I've seen a few different viable builds. The one currently here is my go-to build. But we'll just start off with, I'll talk about each passive and why I take or don't take that passive. Absolved is definitely a must take. Plus you need this to get to Sacred anyways. Or I guess I should actually talk about which 3 abilities I use and why. So currently I use Sacred Ground. Sacred is the strongest heal in the game. And that is because of this. While allies are here on the Sacred Ground, they take 50% more from all healing. And on top of that, you also have your Fortifying Sacred Ground perk on your armor. So not only is it healing people or making all heals in that circle do 50% more, they're also getting fortified when they're healed by Sacred Ground. So this is just the strongest heal in the game. Now my second two are Orb and Beacon. Ever since closed beta, I liked the AoE heals better than the single target heals. Orb is kind of your weakest heal, but it's also one of your strongest abilities. So what Orb is doing is it's giving Fortify to your allies and providing them with a small heal over time. So Fortify reduces decreased incoming damage. Decreases incoming damage, sorry. So with Orb and Fortifying Sacred, that is, I think, 24% Fortify. So that's 24% Fortify your allies, or 24% damage that your allies are not taking. But also the way the math works, for whatever reason, 24% Fortify actually reduces about 40% incoming damage. So yeah, that's one of the reasons, or I guess that's the reason I like Orb Protection so much. Not to mention, if you get this passive on Orb, it also gives you Fortify and heals you, so it can be a nice little heal over time for yourself. Beacon is probably my favorite ability in the game. If you can hit your shots with Beacon on your allies, this can be a very powerful weapon. Some people like to haste on Beacon. I'm not personally a fan. I think there are other passives that you can take that are more powerful than this. But it can be nice. But yeah, so a lot of people are probably running these three abilities, or maybe Sacred, Beacon, and Light's Embrace. But yeah, I think the AoE heals provide the most utility for your team, and it can also provide the most healing for your team. So like, whereas Light's Embrace is a single target heal, Orb you could hit 10 people with it at once. So you're healing 10 people, whereas Light's Embrace you're only healing one person. But I will still show a viable build with Light's Embrace later. Divine Embrace is, I'm gonna be honest, it's trash. I tried using it. I used it for a whole war. Um, it heals for a lot. I think I was healing for like 4.3k on someone not in a sacred, so it hits hard. But the problem is the cast time on Divine Embrace. Um, I was gonna go back and spec into it just so you could see, but I want to say it has around a 2 to 3 second cast time. So the argument is that if you can get all the way down to rebound, you can heal 3 people with this one single target heal, and it would be better than Light's Embrace. But the problem is you have to heal someone under 50% health for that to happen. So the problem I was running into was I would see someone under 50% health, I would go to heal them with Divine Embrace, but by the time the 3 second cast time went off and the heal actually went out, they would either be dead or they would already be above 50% health from a different healer. So it sounds good in theory, but it just doesn't work that well practically. Splash is interesting with the amount of debuffs that are going around. Um, well, yeah, Splash is interesting just because of this last passive. So the idea would be that you could cleanse your teammates from roots, etc. But personally, I just don't think it's worth. Your dude does like a little sidestep and he claps his hands. The animation takes almost as long as Divine Embrace. And I don't know, I just never liked this ability since it was overpowered in the beta. I don't think it heals for that much. The odds that all 4 of your group members are not full health and need this heal, this 60% weapon damage heal, is not that great. Yeah, but I mean, you're welcome to try it out. You might love this ability. Personally, it's not for me. Um, but yeah. So that's my build. You're probably asking why I don't take this passive. Um, that's solely because I needed this AoE on Beacon for it to splash, or sorry, on Orb for it to splash. So you can get to that passive a few different ways. I'll show you that that ultimate. I'll show you the way I would recommend getting to it if you really feel like you need this. The problem is if you're playing correctly and if you're doing your job right with your fortifying sacred and your orb, your allies shouldn't be below 50% health most of the time. And I know what you're thinking. This passive is like, oh, but you get 30% more healing with this. Yeah, but you get 30% more healing until they're above 50% health. So it can be nice to save someone's life, but with the way this is set up right now, you shouldn't need it, or at least in my playstyle, I don't need it. Um, but yeah, if you really want this passive and you still want to run these 3 abilities, which I think are the 3 strongest abilities right now, you would um take off glowing focus, take off the extra time on beacon, take enchanted justice and intensify, and then also take off protector's touch, and then you can get divine blessing. I've seen a few people running this build. It's not a bad build. Personally, I like the extra time on beacon and the extra fortify from protector's touch. It kind of fits my playstyle better. But this build would technically be the most overall healing, in my opinion. Now, the last build I would recommend is to drop orb and take Light's Embrace. With this, you get your 5 seconds back with Beacon, you get your Protector's Touch back, and then I would also take either Spirits United, because this would give an extra buff to your party, which would give Light's Embrace 30% more healing because of the way Light's Embrace stacks. Or you could also take Speed of Light, which is the haste on the beacon. And then you also would have the Light's Embrace perk on your armor ideally, so you would have double speed buff. This is an interesting build. I've tried it a few times when I was healing for our backline hit squad. It's not necessarily bad, but personally I don't like the way that target healing works in this game. It reminds me more of a tap targeting MMO, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. And just the targeted healing is so clunky. You have to use scroll wheel, and I don't know, personally not a fan. But if you are running Light's Embrace, I would do either this build or this build. But yeah, I think that's it for I think that's it for the lifestyle build. If you have any questions about any more questions about the build, feel free to ask. I think before we get into actual PvP, I think I'll go over my settings real quick and what settings you'll want. Alright, so for settings, you'll see, I guess we'll do keybinds first. Most of my keybinds are still default. One thing I would definitely recommend though is, where is it? Target self. I think this is left control by default. I made it left alt just so I could hit it with my thumb instead of having to reach all the way down with my pinky to hit it. So if you do want to target yourself with a Light's Embrace or a Sacred, you can just press alt with your thumb, and then you still have full range of motion on your other 4 fingers. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much the only real keybind you would need. I still have all my abilities on the default, I believe, QRF. Oh, I changed consumable 4 to 2, so this is kind of a bold choice. So I took off weapon 2. I have weapon switch on my mouse, and then I put this consumable on 2 just because 6 is kind of hard to reach if you need to hit that last consumable, so I moved it to 2. Kind of a bold decision, but try it out, you might like it. Oh, yes, this will, okay, there's one other thing. Let me find where it is. Oh yeah, exit auto target. Change this to T. So if you are running targeted healing, which I'll go into, well, if you're not running Light's Embrace, you don't really need targeted healing. Unless you just need targeting for your sacreds. But one thing you can do is, I have my sacred bound to F. So then I put exit auto target on T. So you can just hit F and then T pretty quickly, like back to back. If you don't, because sometimes your sacred ground can go on just a random teammate that you're not even looking at. So if you do want to run targeted healing, but you see that your sacreds are not going where you want them to, or not going on the ally you want, put this on a key that's easier to reach, like I would recommend G or T, maybe even V, so you can just hit your F or whatever your keybind first sacred ground is, F, and then immediately hit one of the other ones. Preferences, that doesn't really matter. Okay, so gameplay. So these are the healing settings I would recommend if you're running my build. I don't use targeted healing. I just free cast my sacreds. And then everything else doesn't really matter. I'm not even sure if this matters if you have target healing off. But if you are running target healing and you're running Light's Embrace, you would want target healing on, and then group mode on or off. This would depend if you're just worried about healing your group of 5. Run group mode on, because then you can always keep your group of 5 healed. You can Light's Embrace anyone in your group if they're within 25 meters of you. But if you're just worried about like main ball healing and you're running Light's Embrace, I would turn group mode off. Everything else, this is what I would recommend. For visuals, please play on max FOV if you're not. If you're not playing on max FOV, it becomes a lot easier for a hammer or an axe or an ice gauntlet to come up behind you and drop a gravity well or an ice wall on your face, and then there's nothing you can do. But if you turn this to max, you have a better chance of seeing people come behind you. Alright, so now that we got all the base stuff out of the way, I think we'll get into some gameplay. And we'll talk about positioning, where you should be, how you should use your abilities, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so unfortunately, this is the only recent gameplay footage that I have. The people that were attacking us this war weren't very coordinated, but either way, you can still see my positioning and how I fight with my group and with the main ball. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is your positioning. This will be different whether you're, well, it'll be a little bit different if you're attacking or you're defending, but I think it'll be about the same actually, either way. So hold on, let me just pull up like a map of a fort. That'll be easier to describe. Alright, so I just used snipping tool. Let's snip this out and drew this on here. Don't judge me. But anyways, either way, when you're attacking or defending, attacking, it'll be a little bit different because you have to get to the point first. But once you get to the point, you're going to want to be circling around the point. Make sure you're not standing in one spot. You're going to want to be going around the point, finding where the fights are going on, and dropping heals on those fights. Okay? So yeah, kind of just like circle the point. Make sure you're never standing in one spot. You don't want to always be in this back line. If you're always here and your other healer's always here, then the people attacking know, okay, I just got to get to this spot and I'll nuke all the healers. Likewise, if you're defending, or I'm sorry, yeah, if you're attacking, you don't always want to be just directly behind the point, because then the people defending know, okay, I just got to get here and I'll nuke the healers here. You want to be moving around the point, be agile, move where the fights are. Okay, yeah, that should be good for positioning. One thing that I like to do, so this will be a little bit different, that you'll see me doing in this clip, is, actually let's bring the graphic back. I like to push past the point and kind of be a front line healer, like right next to the action. That way I know I can be healing the people that are doing a lot of damage, but also the people that are going to be taking the most damage. So I like to heal up here in front of the point. Now if we were attacking, that would be the opposite. I would spend most of my time right around this area. Hopefully you can see my cursor on this little thing. I didn't even think about that, but oh no, maybe I have a pin on. If I'm attacking, I like to spend most of my time around in this area, And then if we're defending, I like to spend most of my time over here, push past the points, healing the people that are inting, and killing their backline and their mages. With that, don't be afraid to push W. You can move past the point. Don't think I'm only going to get protection here. You can push past the point and fight with your melee that are fighting up here. As you can see, I'm pushed really far up here in this Ebon Skull War. And I think I end up dying here. I almost get out with the rapier. But yeah, if you die, it's not a huge deal. I do have a 40-second respawn timer, so we're kind of through here, to be honest. But, you know, that's the way of healing on the front line. You will die occasionally. That's okay. You might think, oh, but if I die, I'll be able to do less healing. Yeah, but if you just sit in the back, man, okay, let's do this. If you just sit in the back here, you might be healing for a lot, but you're not necessarily healing the people that need to be healed, if that makes sense. Now, there are different playstyles. There are people that need to heal the mages that are, and other people that are chilling back here, but you don't need to spend all your time here. All right, so now we're going to talk about how and when and where to use your 3 abilities. Hopefully a good clip will come up here pretty soon. So one thing that I like to do, and I think is the best thing to do, is use your sacred ground and your abilities where you think. Oh wow, I died again. I'm kind of trash. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. Use your sacred ground and your orb where you think people are about to be fighting. So what I mean by that is I like to put my sacred on friendly and enemy gravity wells. I like to put them in ice storms where I know people are going to be taking damage, and then where they're going to need that extra fortify from fortifying sacred and from orb. I think there was actually, oh well, hopefully another one comes up. But yeah, you need to put your heals where people are going to be fighting, like that right there. Wasted sacred. Don't be me. Don't do that. The sacred is getting no value back there in the back line. It's healing a couple mages, but I'd rather be healing the people up here that are taking a lot of damage. Right here on top of this gravity well, this would have been a great spot to put a sacred. I think I actually get to this sacred a little. Okay, no, that's not bad. See, I got a friendly gravity well there. There's going to be people fighting in that gravity well. Put sacreds in gravity wells. There's not a lot of action going on here right now. That was kind of a wasted sacred. But yeah, you want to be, so, well, that kind of goes back to positioning. You want to be pushed up enough and next to your melee so that you can heal them when they go to int or when they're about to, take damage. All right, let's see what else we got. Oh, yeah, that's another good point. You're going to want your beacon mainly on people that like to int. And by int, I mean the people that push through into the backline. That's where it's going to get the most value, is on those people that like to go after or that people are entering in the fight. It's not bad if you throw sacred that are already, or sacred and beacon on people that are already fighting. But I find you get the most value in people that are running into the fight. Okay, so now that you used, oh wow, that was a really late sacred. See, if I could have got to that about 2 seconds earlier, I could have saved those however many skulls are right there from dying. But since we talked about what to do once you use your abilities, let's talk about what to do after you use your abilities. So this kind of goes back to my build. See if I can bring that up real quick. So the reason in my preferred build, I don't take Intensify. Enchanted Justice isn't bad, but it's just not worth 8% weapon damage for 6 seconds. It's like a little mini heal. That's not even worth taking. But a lot of people take this Intensify passive because they think, oh, if I hit my 3 heavies, I can heal for 30% more. Sounds great in theory, but just having to keep that up all the time and worry whether you're always looking down at your bar, you're worried if I have that passive up or not. I think personally it's better just to spam light attacks. Because if you notice, light attacks heal for 16% weapon damage. That's as much as a beacon heals for. Beacon and lights heal for the same amount. So if you think about how much your beacon, and sacred for that matter, if you think about how much those two abilities heal for, you can heal that same amount with your lights. On top of that, if you get this revitalized passive, lights also give you CDR. And then if you have a refreshing move on your light staff on top of that, that's 7.8% CDR, I believe, just from hitting a light attack. And then you're also healing with your lights. So for that reason, you'll see me just spamming light attacks when my abilities are not on cooldown. That gives me CDR, that gives me more healing. I think personally spamming lights gives you more healing than trying to actually hit 3 people with heavies and build up that passive. Let's see what else. Alright, now we're gonna go over how to use your secondary weapon. Personally, I would prefer. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about mana. So I see a lot of people, or not necessarily a lot, but I see some people complaining about they're having mana issues. Personally, that's never been a problem for me. If you feel like you're low on mana, when I get to about 20 or 30 mana, just make sure to keep an eye on this bottom bar. But then you'll also see the skill grayed out if you don't have enough mana to cast it. So keep an eye on that. If you see that it's low, just hit a mana pot. I guarantee you that if you're just main healing, you should never have your mana pot should never be on cooldown by the time you go to hit another one. It's almost near impossible, I feel like. So yeah, don't be afraid to hit a mana pot. If you're mid fight, you can dodge and you can always get a pot off after you dodge. So you can dodge, hit a mana, hit a health pot, whatever you need to do if you can get that dodge off. And you have iframes on your dodge, so you should be fine as long as you can dodge and then hit a mana pot, and you can go right back to healing. Okay, now for your secondary weapon. How do you use your secondary weapon? Right here you'll actually this is great. See I got screamed at right there. I hit my riposte and then I fletched away. Hold on, we'll go back and watch that again. This is the perfect reason. This is why I love using rapier right now. It just gives me so much survivability. This guy comes up, screams me in the back. I pull it out, riposte, dodge, evade, and I'm out. I didn't even have to use my fletch. And now I'm back behind my melee where I can heal all them going to kill the people that just screamed at me. So that is the beauty of the rapier. I always riposte after I get rooted. If you get hit by, or I like to say my fletch for moving in between points and for getting out of gravity wells. Now you can also evade out of gravity wells, but it's not always consistent. If you're in the middle, your evade won't go all the way out. But if you're around the edge of the gravity well, you can just evade straight out. But yeah, that was case in point how to use a rapier. If you feel like you're getting CC locked by hammers, one hammer stun won't kill you. Most people, after they do a hammer stun, they'll immediately go for the knockdown. You can probably eat both of those before you'll die. Yeah, unfortunately I only got the last 12 minutes of this war. But anyways, we'll just restart it so you can kind of see what I've been talking about as I've been talking about it. But yeah, so if you eat a bunch of hammerstones, just repost after. They'll almost always go for a heavy after the knockdown or after the stun. They give you plenty of time to riposte or dodge and just roll away from everyone. And get back to where your melee are fighting. Fight beside them. Um, yeah. So your secondary is mainly going to be used to pill for yourself when you find yourself out of position, which can definitely happen. I find myself out of position a lot because I like to play very aggressive. But yeah, that's what your secondary is mainly going to be used for. If you don't like the rapier, the second best weapon to pill for yourself is the hammer. You can, if you find a big group on you, you can immediately go for the stun and then clear those guys out and then just walk away after. The only problem is hammer is not nearly as mobile, so I would recommend you, as I said earlier, to be in medium if you do feel like running the hammer. Void Gauntlet, if you do want to run Void Gauntlet, you have two options to how to use your Void Gauntlet. You can either use it to engage in fights and help your team out that way, or you can use it defensively and scream at melee and even scream at people that scream at you. Yeah, personally, I wouldn't recommend it because you don't have an escape, so you will find yourself getting caught a lot. But if you wanted to go like a medium Void Gauntlet build, I could see that working. One thing you'll notice me doing here is I will ping my sacred grounds. This is something huge that I started implementing a while back that I've tried to convince everyone to get a part of. So if I see my teammates are fighting and I throw a sacred, unfortunately all circles are green. It would be nice if Amazon gave us a way to differentiate. I don't even know if I said that right. Which heals were friendly and which heals were not. You could probably see that right there when I ping that sacred right after throwing it. So the way I do that is I press F to pull up my sacred, M1 to cast, and then I immediately hit middle mouse right after. And that allows me to just do it all in a swift motion and ping my sacreds. That way when your friendly melee, or I guess not even melee, are fighting, they know which hills they can just stand and bang in. So yeah, I would definitely recommend you start doing that if you're not already. I've had so many compliments from melee, you'll literally become your melee's favorite healers because they'll actually know, okay, if I need heals, I just go to this yellow marker right here and there'll be friendly heals there. That was a good example of a riposte right there. That dude jumped on me with a hatchet and I just riposted and walked away. Didn't even have to use any of their abilities. Right here you'll see that I noticed I low on mana. This is kind of what we talked about earlier. Just hit a pot and boom, back to full mana. I was actually kind of late on that sacred and a couple of my teammates died because of that, which is very unfortunate. But if I would have been paying better attention to my mana bar, that wouldn't have happened. And then we saw this rapier clip earlier. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about all I wanted to talk about as far as PvP and wars go. Be wary of your positioning. Fight beside your melee, not just in the back line. Don't be scared to push W. Ping your sacreds. Use your secondary to pill for yourself and get back to your team when you find yourself out of position or if you get jumped. Personally, I would recommend Rapier. Consider the light build. I know a lot of people feel comfortable in medium because they just have the extra survivability. But I promise you, the Rapier gives you enough survivability most of the time. I kind of got bodied by a fire mage there. It is what it is. But you're elusive enough with the Rapier that you can get yourself out of positions and get back for yourself. I think the last thing I'm going to do is show you some clips of just how survivable you can be in light with a rapier if you know what you're doing. I have a couple OPR clips, so I think I'll bring those up now. Oh, one more thing I forgot to talk about here. Get some of these cleansing pots. As you can see in this clip, after I got screamed at, I accidentally hit a health pot, but then I hit a cleanse pot right after. What that does is it cleanses the disease from the Void Gauntlet Scream. So if you didn't know, Void Gauntlet Scream inflicts a disease which reduces your healing or your incoming healing. So these cleanse pots cleanse those. They cleanse them from you. So I personally put these on my hotbar instead of haste. I just find them to be much better utility, both attacking and defending. If you find yourself getting screamed at or stuck in an ice wall, you can pop one of these cleansing pots and they'll get you right out. But yeah, I think we'll transition over to how to be survivable in light and with a rapier. Alright, so here's your little clip of me just trolling some guys in OPR, being elusive with a rapier. This is, I think, like a 1v8 or so. Some of the guys end up giving up. Yeah, you can kind of just roll around, make people miss their shots. This melee dude couldn't hit me. Yeah, and then I think I ended up going back in just to troll them some more. But yeah, that guy was like, I want to give up, but then he was like, nah, never mind. That guy thought he hit me with his ice spike. You can kind of just like, dodge around, use your abilities as you need. People will end up just giving up. Ice walls are still the bane of my existence. But yeah. Oh, I guess I should say I got these OPR clips just because it's better to show. It's easier to show what you should be doing in a small scale controlled environment than it is like mid war. And I kind of had this idea after a war, so I didn't have footage from that war at the time. But yeah. Alright, so this clip is just showing you how you can avoid melee. Just kind of dodge around them without having to worry too much about them. This is the reason I switched to Malachites instead of Diamond or Onyxes. After you know, actually got hit by a musket bomb right there. But after they reduce the magnet, you can kind of just, they kind of just miss. Then I dropped a heal for my teammate there, who's 1vxing. And then I got 3 more melee on me. I teabag mid-fight and fletch away like a proper rapier player. Go back in to drop some more heals for my teammate who's just going hard. See if I get this sacred off on him. Yeah, I got the sacred off on him. Thought I was gonna die there, but I got the riposte off. Then you can just fletch away and then you're just chilling. You can do the same thing in war. I probably end up dying here. I'm not sure. No, it looks like I'll make it back into the fort. But yeah. So you can be survivable in light and have a rapier. Alright, so I believe this is another clip about pressing W and not being scared to press W. Go in with your team. I see all my team going into the point here. This is OPR, but the same applies to war. Don't be afraid to, go in and heal your team as they're doing damage. You don't always have to sit back. So if you notice, I'm kind of sitting off to the side of the point here. This is kind of the similar thing you want to do in the war. There's one guy that notices I'm over here, but he's easily avoidable. I'm still able to get all my CDs off, hit lights, get this big healing out. I had targeted healing on for some reason here, but I still got that sacred off right there where those people were fighting. But yeah, you can kind of just sit on the side of the point or on the edge of the point, move around, don't sit in one spot, and you'll be chilling, dishing out big heals all at the same time. I actually lived here a lot longer than I realized. Anyways, on to the next one. Alright, so this clip is going to be more of an example of healing where your team is going to fight. So I see a lot of red here and a lot of blue here. So I dropped the Sacred on the guy with the Void Blade. My team cleans up that kill pretty easily because they got the extra Fortify and they're just better than the other team. Put the beacon on either an enemy player or your melee. I see my mana is low here, so I hit a pot. Then I'm able to get this Sacred back off. I said there's people stuck in the ice wall, so I dropped the Sacred on the ice wall. Or no, I actually didn't drop the Sacred there. I just dropped the orb there. But yeah. So you want to put your Sacreds where your team is going to fight, because unfortunately it's a stationary heal, unlike Beacon and Orb. So sometimes you even want to put it in front of where your melee or your people that are inting currently are. So if I would have put the Sacred like about right here, that would have been more proactive and probably prevented more damage, but I kind of held off, which ended up being fine. But yeah. All right. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over. I was rewatching some of the clips and some of the footage is a little bit blurry, so I sincerely apologize for that. But thank you for sticking around nonetheless and watching the whole video. Hopefully I answered a lot of questions, but if you have any more, I would be happy to answer those. I'll get to those as soon as possible. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully you learned something. Yeah, have a good one. Mwah.